I think most of us would like to believe that in a court of law, both sides are equal. The prosecution and the defense are on equal footing, and they're just presenting the facts and the evidence and letting justice come out. If anything, it should be the prosecutor that's at a disadvantage because they have the burden of proof. They're the ones who have to be able to prove that the defendant did the thing that they did. So, if anything, it should be weighted the other way, but we all know it isn't, right? We all know that prosecutors' offices get so much budget for so many prosecutors, and they can hire so many of them. And it's just crazy because we've seen cases where there's been like one prosecutor for every witness. You know, all these prosecutors, you know, and then the defense just has like one or two guys. And one of the big problems is public defenders' offices. Pretty much everywhere in the country, they are notoriously overworked. I mean, and a lot of them are good lawyers. A lot of them are really good. They've just got so many cases that there's no possible way they could adjudicate them all. And that's why so many people in so many places say, you know, their public defender told them to get a plea bargain. Because if they don't plead out most of their cases, they don't have time to go to trial on, 20, 30 cases at one time. That's not going to be feasible, so. This is about Oregon, but I imagine the situation isn't too different in other places, so. This is Oregon Supreme Court sides with public defender who objected to taking case. And generally, unlike regular lawyers who can, they're free to say, I'll take you on or not, public defenders are kind of the last resort. If no one else will take you, or if you can't afford them or whatever, you should be able to go to a public defender and get representation. Well, the Oregon Supreme Court found a state court judge erred by forcing a public defender to take a new client over the objections of the lawyer's employer. So why would that be? Isn't that your right? I want a public defender. Okay, take this guy. And the public defender says, I can't take it. Well, what's going on here? What's going on here is really, really serious. The court ruled that a judge's order assigning a new case to a public defender in Marion County who said he could not ethically represent the client must be vacated, or the judge should explain her decision. All right, there's a red flag. I mean, a decision is where you give the legal justification for it, and she didn't. Oregon's public defense system is in turmoil. For more than a year, Oregon has failed to meet the constitutional requirement to provide an attorney to everyone charged with a crime. That includes hundreds of people in jail and thousands more who are not in custody. Not only has the state violated the rights of defendants, the lack of attorneys has created challenges for prosecutors and crime victims. For months, public defenders in Marion County have sought help from the courts to reduce their caseloads. There's a problem. There just aren't enough of them. They're just overloading them with all these cases that they can't possibly get through them all. And I mean, they don't have the money to hire them. And if you're an attorney, why would you want to become a public defender under those circumstances? Because the solution would appear to be to get more public defenders, but if they're not going to pay well, why would you sign up for that? You'll be overworked, overstressed, you won't be able to do a good job, and it's not even like it'll further your career or anything. So, I think what they need to do is have a law where you spend just as much money on public defenders' offices as you do on the prosecutor's office. Whatever money you pay to the prosecutor, you gotta pay the same amount to public defenders. And that'll even it all out, because it's nowhere near, it's not even close. It's not even close. And you might say, well, not everyone's going to need a public defender because they'll have the option of hiring their own. Okay, but that would just, take the load off of them. But I mean, if there were a situation where, if you need a public defender because you can't afford one, you can get a defense that may be just as good as what, someone could hire. And if you can pay for it, then you pay the public defender's office for it. Or you'd have the option of hiring your own. So I think that would be, the best decision, especially if it's a case where we've seen this. They just seize all your money. Okay, you committed a crime, so we're freezing all your assets. We're not letting you, and you go to court and say, well, can I at least have enough to hire a lawyer? And the state says, no, we can't do that because of this, that, or this. So what do you do then? Well, if you had a good public defender's office, you could go get a good defense. Then when you get your money back, you could reimburse them. But yeah, they need just as much money as the prosecutor's office. And also, if you're thinking that this might be too one-sided, think about how one-sided prosecutors have it already. Not only do they have the big budgets and tons of prosecutors, they've got powers. They can go and collect all evidence. The defense can't collect evidence. They pull someone over for drunk driving. And they want to, get a blood test. What do they have to do? Well, they have to take another couple of vials of blood so that the defense can have it, so that they can run their own tests on it. They can't just go and collect evidence on their own. Prosecutors have all the evidence. Prosecutors have all the power. Despite the Constitution, a defense attorney really doesn't have a power to force a witness to come and compel testimony. Because they just tried it, didn't they? In the Proud Boys cases, they wanted to call up Ray Epps. Couldn't even subpoena him because the guy's been ducking subpoenas. He put a big, strong gate with a big lock on his home, and apparently he's been, according to him, he's been running around living in RVs. Because he's trying to avoid all these process servers. And they went to the judge, and they even wanted to just do something simple like, servant by publication, and the judge wouldn't allow it. If that had been a prosecution witness, they could have tracked him down, they could have put down APBs, they could have done all sorts of stuff to get him in as a witness. And they could have actually prosecuted him if he evaded them. But defense can't do that. They don't have those same powers. The system is way, way out of balance. So they argue their attorneys' workloads are so excessive, they were effectively violating their legal and ethical obligations as lawyers. At the same time, they argued they were also violating their clients' constitutional rights to effective legal counsel. Because they're just so overworked, they can't put in the time needed to work on the case. They can't put in the resources they would need to track down witnesses or whatever. Just can't do it. But judges in the county, they don't care about that stuff like fairness or your right to an attorney or whatever. They just kept appointing clients, arguing that they have a constitutional obligation to ensure those charged with crimes who cannot afford a lawyer get one. See, it's just a checkbox with them. No, we checked that off. We gave them a lawyer. See, you got a lawyer. He's sitting right there. Well, yeah, but that's not the same thing as having effective legal counsel. That's not the same as having someone who has the time and the budget to actually give you a zealous defense. So Shannon Wilson, Executive Director for Public Defender of Marion County, a nonprofit public defense firm, objected to any new court-appointed clients. I am notifying the court that we are at caseload and workload capacity. And she said that to Pro Tem Judge Tiffany Underwood. I am responsible for the ethical violations of those attorneys that I supervise, and I must take remedial action. Because of current caseloads, all attorneys at the Public Defender of Marion County, including myself, are unable to provide constitutionally sufficient representation to new individuals facing criminal charges. But Underwood appointed one of Wilson's lawyers to a criminal case anyway. Over the Public Defender of Marion County's objection, I am going to appoint Tim Downen to represent you. It's rigged, man. Totally rigged. So the Public Defender of Marion County made a mandamus petition to the Oregon Supreme Court stating that, as with all of the public defenders in Wilson's office, Downen lacks the capacity to take on more clients. The firm has 64% of the staff it needs to meet its current caseloads. So she was actually underestimating it when she said, what she said, they were at capacity, or however it was that she put it. No, they're beyond capacity. Every 2 attorneys they have are doing the work of 3. In the time it takes for an attorney to adjudicate 2 cases, they have to do 3. That's the situation they're in. As a result, every time a Public Defender of Marion County attorney, including Mr. Downen, is required to take on a new case, the court is compelling that attorney to violate their ethical duties by forcing them to expend their limited resources on one client at the expense of another, with neither client receiving the resources and time necessary for a proper constitutional defense. The Supreme Court's one-page order states Judge Underwood is commanded to vacate the order appointing Mr. Downen as counsel for defendant, or, in the alternative, to show cause for not doing so within the next 2 weeks. Linda Hukari, Marion County Court Trial Court Administrator, said in a statement that the court planned to respond to the Supreme Court's ruling in the coming days. The Marion County Circuit Court takes seriously its constitutional and statutory obligation to ensure that eligible defendants have qualified attorneys to represent them. Yeah, I'm so sure you do. I'm so impressed by how seriously you take this. Yeah. How about paying them money? How about paying them more money to hire more attorneys? Josh Krumholtz, the attorney representing Public Defender of Marion County, said they've succeeded in getting the state's highest court to engage on the case. It established unequivocally that trial judges may not appoint public defenders who do not have the ethical capacity to handle cases for which they are being appointed. The next step is to now solve the problem of unethical and unconstitutional courts by working together to take next steps to resolve these issues. Well, I told you what my solution is. They both get paid the same. Whatever you pay the prosecutor's office, whatever that budget is, give that budget to the public defender's office. Do it the same. Of course, Chris is going to come in the comments and say get rid of prosecutors entirely. He always does that. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. They mentioned the Senate Bill 337. I tried looking through it. God, this thing is so huge. It's like hundreds of pages. But it looked like what they want to do is take the public defender's office away from the courts and put it under the executive branch. Oh yeah, great. Have it run by the same people who are prosecuting you. That ought to work. They don't want it to work. They don't want it to work. They don't want you to have a defense. That's what this is all about. That's exactly what it's all about. People are talking about, the 2-tier justice system. How about where if you burn down a building in Kenosha or Portland, you get basically a slap on the wrist. You know, or if you're caught doing crack driving, 100 miles an hour and you've cheated on your taxes, you get a slap on the wrist. But in certain other cases, if you walk through a building, you get 19 years. Well, we got something worse than a two-tier justice system. We have a one-sided justice system. Where, people complain like the OJ trial or trials like that where, they can afford to hire 5, 6, 7, 8 attorneys and like, oh, they're just stacking their attorneys. That's why OJ was not guilty, not because the prosecution's case was crap, although it was, but it was because OJ could afford all these, 5, 6, 7, 8 attorneys, however many there were. Well, how many do you think were at the prosecutor's office working on that case? Or any case? In most cases, we got our one little, defense attorney at the table there with us. They might show up with 1 or 2 prosecutors there at the table, but there were another 10, 12, 15, 20 that were working on it. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. It's way one-sided, and we gotta do something about it, and it starts with acknowledging the problem, because Oregon is not unique here. The same thing is happening in state after state after state, and being faced by criminal defendant after criminal defendant after criminal defendant, every single one of whom is innocent, because they have not yet been found guilty. Innocent until proven guilty. They haven't been proven guilty yet, so they're innocent. So this is what they're doing to innocent people. Never forget that. Never forget that. Thank you so very much for watching. Comments for the Comment God, shares for the Share Throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell. Try to get this lifted above the shadow banning, which you know is going to happen. If you are seeing my video over in the related videos, please let me know about it, because everything I'm hearing is saying otherwise. My videos just aren't appearing. They're not even showing in the subscriptions, which is why it's important to click that bell. And they're just not seeing them. That's the shadow banning. That's what it is. Get past that. And it also means that it's that much important for you to support these videos by sharing them everywhere, and I appreciate everyone who does, but also by going to donate.bogosity.tv, because all of that also means I'm not making as much money as I would be able to make from these videos, which means I'm not able to spend as much time on them as I would like. And that's just how it is. So whatever you think it's worth, donate.bogosity.tv, all sorts of ways to support. Come in there and give what you can. Thank you so very much for watching. Until next time, stay strong and be free.